Hello and welcome to this executive interview with Jfrog. I'm your host, Adrian Sanabria, principal researcher at the Defenders Initiative and host of the Enterprise Security Weekly podcast. I'll be talking with Paul Davis, field CISO at Jfrog. Today, we'll be discussing the similarities between the challenges of securing development workflows and maturing the role of the CISO. Welcome, Paul. How are you?
Doing well, thank you. Great to be here.
Great time to have this conversation. I think information security is very much at this inflection point where there's a lot of focus on it, and we've got budget, we've got people, so now's the time to make the most of it, right? So, for years, developers have dictated much of the tooling and workflows necessary to get the job done. We trust them. As long as that code gets delivered on time, things go to production. We're generally happy with it. But is that becoming problematic now that malicious actors have started targeting popular libraries and plugins and software repositories?
Yes, it is becoming a problem. Research is showing that the sort of new target for the malicious people is the developers and their infrastructure. So the problem is that we've ended up sort of growing organically, these developer islands of technology, and now with the need for visibility, we need to start consolidating and streamlining them and give the security teams the visibility they need to see around software development lifecycles.
Yeah, and in general, this is one of the toughest things where you know, getting in the way of code getting developed or delivered, that's a usually a career limiting moment for security teams. So is shipping buggy, insecure software better than shipping late or nothing at all? How do we balance the need for getting the stuff to production and making sure that it's secure on the way there?
So shipping code faster that might be buggy or have issues is a problem that is being reflected through the increased scrutiny of governments and regulatory bodies around the requirement to have secure code, to have traceability across the entire life cycle. And obviously, just like the kill chain, fixing the problem earlier on in the development cycle is cheaper than doing it later. So if we can enable the developers to actually fix bugs and issues, it's a problem. Statistics show that 25% of a developer's time is spent fixing bugs. That's a lot of time to lose. If we could fix it before it becomes a bug, that would be brilliant, you know?
So I imagine a lot of automation integrating into existing workflows, trying to add as little friction as possible, right? While letting them know as soon as the they put the bug into the code, they copy and paste from ChatGPT into their their IDE.
Yeah, I think we're realizing that generative AI is generative. So ChatGPT doesn't necessarily generate the best code in the world. So when you said that, that kind of scares me. But you're right.
Yeah,
Automation is
it's going
key.
to happen.
Yeah. Automation is key because the volume and the speed of development. Now we have data scientists with AI and machine learning, and they're writing in Python. So they're another group that we now have to worry about
Yeah.
pushing code out that could expose organizations to risk. It's a big problem.
Yeah, right. Like with ChatGPT, I don't need to know how to write code. I just need to know how to tell ChatGPT what I want to write. So I imagine we've got a bit of an explosion going on in terms of the number of new developers, or I guess, I mean, I write some code, I've not written in a whole lot of languages. I wouldn't hesitate to go to ChatGPT to help me just get something done quickly.
That's the key thing, help. Don't rely. A lot of organizations I'm dealing with are realizing this is a tool, another tool in the tool belt. It's not just generate code and it's going to be superbly reliable. Half the times they don't work, and the other half they're creating buggy code. It really scares me. So I like to use ChatGPT as a guiding voice for developers and for AppSec teams and for security teams, as opposed to just sort of relying upon it. Don't use it to generate your instant reports. That's a career-altering maneuver.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And zooming out a bit, as I alluded to in my introduction, largely I feel like security's gotten what it's asked for. It's gotten budget, It's gotten people. It's gotten a seat at the table in some cases. Yeah, it depends on the organization how much influence the CISO actually has. Uh, how are we still so often missing the mark, it seems like? Is it because all this is new and we're still just getting used to it? What are some of your thoughts on where we're still missing out?
We might have the people, we might have the budget for our own teams, but the biggest gap is the gap between the developers and the security teams. There is a lot of angst or a gap between the two teams, and also the way motivated. You talk about getting code out quickly, not producing good quality code. So we might have a seat at the table, but we're at the beginning of the journey. And I'm encouraging all the CISOs or the security teams to actually reach out and start understanding the world of software development, understand their cycles there. You'll find there's a lot of alignment between what security wants to do with our triad of integrity and availability and confidentiality with what the developers want to do. But we have to reach out and build the bridge to them. And that's the biggest thing I encounter. And I'm working with a number of organizations on helping bridge that gap, that chasm, as I like to describe it, between security and developers. Teaching developers how to hack might sound a terrible thing to do, but if they understand how you could do a buffer overflow, which is still in the top 5 vulnerabilities, that would be great.
Yeah, yeah. They don't need to understand how to pass the hash, how to use Mimikatz. It's a very narrow, much more
Yes,
narrow than all of cybersecurity, right?
definitely, definitely.
Yeah. And some of the as security's gone mainstream, some of the key challenges of the CISO, I feel like, have changed somewhat. Certainly, as the SEC has put in rules, now we've got a time limit before that we have to declare an incident in. Of course, there's the materiality discussion, which is not straightforward, not simple. But at one point in my career, I was on a CISO track, and today I'm not sure. I'm not sure you could pay me enough. Especially being a CISO for a public company. What are some of the key challenges you're seeing around the CISO role today, and are we seeing a chilling effect at all, do you
We
think?
are. So first of all, I was asked recently, are CISOs masochists? Um, I don't know whether that's a good analogy, but I think we
Spot
have
on.
to have a high risk tolerance, and this is the biggest problem, is the stress, the inability to not say no to a security challenge, the obligation of protecting the business means a lot of CISOs are getting burnt out, and that it's ironically still all these years later, the average tenure of a CISO is 18 months, which is just nuts. You can't achieve anything in 18 months, rarely effective, right? So I think CISOs we have to have good resilience, handle stress, a good home base to support us, and be able to handle stress, obviously, and also have that liability insurance. But also, as people who are translating security into business, we also need to learn how to talk business terms and translate it so that the business people, the executives, actually understand what the real state of security is. We are the voice of truth in this situation. We're not the fixers, we are the voice. So we really need to um, help the executives understand the true state of security.
I think that is a big challenge because when I do a lot of when I interview folks and we talk about the state of different areas of cybersecurity, a lot of it comes down to communication issues with other parts of the business. It's security and identity, that don't have the best relationship. Security and developers don't have the best relationship. Security and compliance, or security and the board, or the other execs. So that's what it seems like we need to maybe study up on some of those other areas. You need to spend some time there. What would you recommend? What can CISOs do, particularly with the business piece? Building rapport on the business side. What kind of stuff should they be doing today?
I've always said CISOs, 80% of their job at the beginning is actually marketing, selling security to the rest of the organization, making them realize that we're not sort of people sitting in the dark with hacking computers and just trying to find problems, that we're actually driven by security. So from that perspective, you have to go out and build those bridges. They're not going to come to you because they've always regarded security as problem makers. We have to change that. We are business enablers. We help the business be more robust, more secure. It's the whole thing there. So we really do need to reach out. And you're right. We have to understand their world, right? We can't expect them to understand CVEs, rarely. So we have to put it in terms they understand. So for developers, hey, if you don't fix it, it's not going to get pushed into production, or it could come back. We've got a new vulnerability. Hey, here's the better way of fixing this code, etc. So we have to understand. I also am a developer, but a lot of CISOs don't have that expertise. So you've got to learn it. And the identity access management team, the SOF team, we've had to do it time and time before. It's another group of people that we need to build bridges and socialize and understand and stop being a stranger to them.
Yeah. And it seems like especially on the business side, like a lot of the what happens in the boardroom, at the executive level are risk discussions, right?
Yeah.
Which is what we're supposed to be worried about in the first place. In fact, I mentioned you couldn't pay me to be a CISO for a public company because of everything that goes along with that, particularly the SEC, everything you have to, all the regulations there. And, if you look at a 10K, it's all about risk.
Mhm.
The whole 10K is about making sure that investors, shareholders understand the level of risk before they buy shares of a company, or if they already own shares of a company. Making sure all that is clear to them. And now it's commonplace to see cybersecurity in the 10K, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it is all about risk. With the increasing, I mean, it's going to sound old, but the increasing need to be agile and secure on your IT services. If your identity access management system goes down, that's a big impact to the whole organization. Everything stops. If you can't deploy software to fix a bug, that's impacts the reputation, the trust of the organization. So risk rarely has to be there. And so that's that translation we have to do of translating it into terms that the other people outside security understand. If this happens, it hurts. But you've also got to be very careful and balanced about it and not be the fear, uncertainty, doubts, the cries
Right.
of doom. You have to do it in such a way saying, look, this is a risk and this is how I think we can address it. Don't just come with a problem, come with a solution. Don't just tell people you've got a vulnerability, work with them to find the mitigating control. It's that building the bridge. Combine the strength of the two knowledge groups to create a better solution.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. And I think as we understand these other groups, it's going to help with that perspective on what's really important, what's not, what hills we die on, and
Yes.
and what we let go, what we compromise on. Like I like to say, the biggest source of risk in any organization is often the CEO. Like deciding to rename the company from Facebook to Meta and go all in on the metaverse. That's a pretty big risk. That I would argue that's a bigger risk than getting hacked.
But the thing is you can't be the no person. Um, you have to be, okay, you want to do this. Let us see what we can do. In the end, another terrible thing I say is that we don't run the business. We're security advisors. The acceptance of risk is the CEO, is the business managers, is the governance risk compliance board, etc. Our job is to make sure that we understand the risks, provide them with solutions. But in the end, if they say, we're going to go into the metaverse and we're going to just sell everything through the metaverse and
Blockchain. Yeah.
yeah, do the whole thing and hey, fix the security later. It's kind of, you got to work a way. So, okay, look, let's see how we can do this securely and safely because this will, if you get it
Exactly.
wrong, you're going to invest a ton of money in the metaverse and you're not going to get anything from it.
Yeah. And finally, just to bring everything around full circle, is supply chain, particularly with software supply chain, an opportunity to help some of these conversations pivot more towards, understanding the business together and working more closely with the business.
Yeah, I mean, the software supply chain is like it's the nervous system of the organization. Everybody's building software, integrating, doing things like that. So will it help? them understand the business? Yes, because you're still going to want to start understanding their business roadmaps, what they're trying to do, the achievements, etc. It's on one level, but it's also a very important level that the CISOs need to take into account and understand and get their security control gates in at the right place. This is not a sort of, one solution. This is layers of defense at different stages, and CISOs need to understand that. And so handling that will reduce their liability exposure, make them liked better in the organization, etc.
Excellent. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And to find out more about Jfrog, please visit jfrog.com/xray. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.